Alright, YouTube, what's going on? It's your boy Zach, the Celtics guy here. I'm back with another video and another story to report on in the news that has been circulating, but of course, something that our mainstream media will never talk about and will never bring up. So, moving over into the topic of South America and what's going on in South America at the moment. As this odious individual that I've mentioned on this channel before, Jair Bolsonaro, the wannabe tyrannical fascist leader that is running Brazil right now, Jair Bolsonaro has made some pretty dubious claims and actually pretty disturbing claims, and is just so typical for a wannabe authoritarian like him. So Jair Bolsonaro recently just decided to spew a bunch of election fraud claims in Brazil, claiming that elections in Brazil are in fact rigged and stolen and everything else, you know, kind of like our former president, our former orange Oompa Loompa president, Donald Trump, decided to spew when he lost the election, when he lost the 2020 election, and legitimately so. And now Jair Bolsonaro has taken a page out of his butt buddy's playbook and is deciding to run with it because that's what he's done with Donald Trump. So Jair Bolsonaro is now making these outrageous and egregious claims. And these claims, remember how I was always saying about how that like Joe Biden would barely say anything about it because he's got his fucking head so far up his ass. Here's the thing though. Someone from his administration, the envoy of Biden's envoy of Brazil, actually said and actually called this out, saying how outrageous these claims are. Yeah, so basically Jair Bolsonaro's comments about elections, and just given how he has such an authoritarian streak in him, he's saying things that are so outrageous that even Joe Biden's envoy of the region is now calling this out. So that's how outrageous this guy is. And I've discussed this guy before. Jair Bolsonaro is every bad thing in the book. He is. I mean, he's just every bad thing in the book. I mean, some people say, oh, he's like Trump. He's the Brazilian Donald Trump. He's actually worse than Trump, as hard as that is to believe, and Trump was pretty bad. But Jair Bolsonaro somehow is a mix of him. He's a mix of every authoritarian right-wing dictator in history. And he's probably one of the worst, and he is for sure the worst leader in that entire region. And it's so outrageous that even Joe Biden has said something, Joe Biden's envoy saying something about it. I'm sure Joe Biden himself wouldn't say anything about it because he probably couldn't point Brazil on a map if his life depended on it. So Jair Bolsonaro has taken the same tired old authoritarian playbook. He has taken a page out of the authoritarian playbook, the same election fraud claim that Donald Trump has ran with, that every other dictator and authoritarian tyrannical leader has ran with. I mean, Jair Bolsonaro is every bad thing you can imagine. I mean, he is unquestionably homophobic. He is sexist. He's said all sorts of degrading things about women, about racial and religious minorities and indigenous people. He said blazingly homophobic things about gay people. I mean, there's no question that Jair Bolsonaro is homophobic. He is extremely homophobic. He's also a dictator. He's got an authoritarian streak in him. He is a wannabe cult leader. That's what this guy is. And I'm actually saying this as I'm actually cooking lunch at the moment. So I figured I would just kind of film this video and talk and do all this at the same time. So Jair Bolsonaro has decided to take a page out of Trump's playbook, and he decided to run with it. And it's pretty disturbing. I mean, the chances of him getting reelected are growing slimmer and slimmer by the day. It looks like someone is going to defeat him somehow. Either it's a more moderate conservative, or an innovator like Lula in Brazil, who's definitely capable of taking votes away from Jair Bolsonaro. But I've explained Jair Bolsonaro on this channel numerous times before, and I know that I've brought him up a few times, but if you look at Jair Bolsonaro's human rights record, he is the most undemocratic leader in the Western Hemisphere. He is probably one of the most authoritarian leaders that Brazil has ever seen since the military dictatorship of Brazil. That was a right-wing dictatorship that the U.S. has decided to back. Because it's a right-wing dictatorship. But when it's a left-wing dictatorship, we don't like it. We bitch about it because they're not kissing our ass. Now, a right-wing dictatorship like Jair Bolsonaro is going to kiss the U.S.'s ass. So therefore, we're gonna praise that authoritarian leadership. So yeah, Jair Bolsonaro is a scumbag. He's an absolute piece of shit. He is someone who never should have gotten elected in the first place. And, you know, I think he got in because, you know, people were sick and tired of neoliberals running the joint. I get that, but they went to probably the worst option that there was. And I wouldn't be surprised if this guy stole the election. I wouldn't be surprised if the CIA conspired to get this guy in. Because it's not like the U.S. hasn't overthrown democratic leaders in South America and the Caribbean and Latin America in general before. No, he has done that. No, our leadership has done that. Democrats and Republicans have done that. But Jair Bolsonaro has an abysmal human rights record, and Brazil's human rights record is deteriorating rapidly, and so isn't Brazil's reputation in the world. So Jair Bolsonaro is doing long-term damage to his country with these claims, and also his mishandling the COVID-19 pandemic. And if you look at Jair Bolsonaro's quotes, I mean his quotes, his comments, he makes offensive comments day by day. He has made racially insensitive comments, extremely homophobic comments, degrading comments about women, degrading comments about Afro-Brazilians and Haitians and every other minority. So yeah, Jair Bolsonaro is extremely homophobic. He's homophobic, he's sexist, and he's bigoted, and I think he's even a racist in some cases. And I don't like throwing around those words, but hey, I mean, you look at his quotes, how else are you supposed to interpret this? Jair Bolsonaro is homophobic, no question about it, and I would definitely say he's racist, if not borderline racist. And I know I've mentioned that before, but I've listed his quotes. He'd rather have a dead son than a gay son. He'd like to do all the, he says he would beat up a gay couple. He wants to persecute his political opponents. So Jair Bolsonaro is a fascist. He is a bigot, and he's also a war criminal. He's every bad thing in the book. I mean, he's an extreme evangelical right-wing neocon. And this is what's happening in Brazil, and it's very disturbing, and it's so outrageous. It's so outrageous that even one of Biden's officials is now speaking up, ironically. Now, you wouldn't think so because we're too fixated on what's going on in fucking Cuba right now and focused on Venezuela and our enemies and countries we don't like. But now that it's someone else, now that it's this guy, so now we're trying to talk about this guy. So the chances of Jair Bolsonaro winning again is very slim, but I really hope not, because Brazil really needs to get this guy out sooner rather than later. But that's my message for them. But this is my message for the political leadership in Brazil just in general. To defeat Jair Bolsonaro, and I've said this before, but you need to get this guy out. I mean, we got rid of our own shitty leaders before, but you know, like George Carlin has said, garbage in, garbage out. It's probably that way in Brazil too. I mean, this is what happens, you know. I mean, look at democracy. Look at what happens when stupid people vote in democracies. This is what happens. This is what happens when stupid people vote in fucking in places like that, and then voting in democracy. Yeah, isn't democracy a great thing, right? Yeah. Well, Brazil's democracy is getting undermined more and more day by day, and it's just I don't know. The future ain't looking good for Brazil, and I hope that they get this guy out sooner rather than later, because this guy is gonna do long-term damage to Brazil over the long run if they don't deal with this guy sooner rather than later. I mean, he's a goofball, and he's not the good type of goofball. So what are your options? I mean, well, what are the options for this guy? I mean, if you put up a left-wing innovator like Lula or some progressive or some like more moderate leader, they're going to absolutely destroy Bolsonaro. I mean, the reason Bolsonaro got in the first place, it wasn't because, oh, he was this great guy. Obviously not. I mean, the guy's a complete bigot and a war criminal. He's every bad thing in the book, so it's not like he was this great guy that had these bad ideas. It was because Brazilians were enthusiastic to vote for him because they were sick and tired of neoliberals like Michael Temer, who was probably one of the most incompetent leaders Brazil's ever seen. And this guy, I mean, Michael Temer, who was Dilma Rousseff's vice president, left office with like a 3% approval rating because he was involved in corruption. Dilma Rousseff was involved in corruption. She got impeached over corruption. Lula was in power before Dilma. Dilma got in. Dilma continued Lula's policy. She failed. She was involved in corruption. She got impeached. Michael Temer served out the rest of her term, and then he turns out to be completely unethical. I mean, Michael Temer probably couldn't give a competent speech if his life depended on it. And then you got someone like Jair Bolsonaro, who is a bigot, a racist, a homophobe, and a war criminal. So people are going to come out against him. I mean, if they get a better leader in Brazil coming up, I mean, just look at some of Jair Bolsonaro's voting records. I mean, his voting record for seniors, his voting record for women, his voting record for indigenous people. Completely, he's against human rights for people who disagree with them. He's a dictator. He's a dictator. Oh, but he got elected, right? Oh, yeah, well, Hitler got elected too, so. Oh, yeah. Oh, but Jair Bolsonaro was democratically elected. Yeah, well, Hitler was elected too. Hitler had elections too. Against human rights for people who disagree with them. Against gay rights, he's completely opposed to LGBT rights, opposed to women's rights, opposed to indigenous rights. You got gay people, women, and indigenous people against him. So if you get some halfway decent leader up against Jair Bolsonaro, the Brazilian people are going to pour out in droves. They're going to pour out in buses and cars and trucks and everything else just to vote this piece of shit down. It will ensure his defeat, okay? I mean, Jair Bolsonaro will get defeated if they put up a halfway decent person. You can't put someone up there like Michael Temer or some neoliberal, because they're just a wishy-washy neoliberal like Joe Biden or something like that. To defeat Jair Bolsonaro, like I said, you either need a progressive leader like Evo Morales in Bolivia, or you need a moderate liberal or a moderate conservative, or an innovator, or some innovator like Evo Morales, or someone who's like a Ron Paul type figure, or a Rand Paul type figure, who's like a conservative, but he's an innovator and he's capable of stealing the liberal and progressive and even conservative voting blocks. So that's what you need. That's just my advice for Brazil, but it's in the news. It's something that interests me, and I'm not telling Brazilians how to run it because it's not my country, it's their country. I just feel bad for people who are living under this guy because this guy is a complete lowlife all around, and he's doing major harm to minorities in Brazil, and it's gotten so bad. Brazil's isolation on the world stage is increasing. Jair Bolsonaro has fought with his neighbors. He's fought with Germany, France, and Norway, which is also another story I'll talk about on another day. But Jair Bolsonaro is taking up the same tired old evangelical approach that all these failed politicians in this country, in Poland, Russia, and the Western world in general have ran with, and they were unsuccessful with it. Okay, Jair Bolsonaro got in because people were tired of the neoliberal shit, kind of like this. I mean, what is Jair Bolsonaro doing? He's trying to act like he's a populist and he's an anti-establishment person, but he's the complete antithesis of a populist. He's a neocon. He's a neocon and a warmonger. So that's my message for those people. my message for those people is that. So people really better get their heads in gear, because this guy's a bad dude. This guy's a bad dude, and it's gotten to the point where even the Biden administration is calling it out. So, I mean, you're going to get failed leaders like that, and then when you get failed leaders like Sebastian Pinera, who was just absolutely unethical. He shot at demonstrators and gunned down peaceful protesters. And then there's Jair Bolsonaro destroying the Amazon rainforest, fighting with every country on the world stage, and is a bigot and a war criminal. So what do you got there? I mean, what are your options? You either get this guy out with a halfway decent leader, or you deal with this guy for another 4 years, and then Brazil's democracy is gonna be screwed. Brazil's democracy is gonna be screwed. So that's my message for the Brazilian people. So unless you get a halfway decent leader, it's not gonna look good. You're gonna get someone like a Janine Aziz in Bolivia. You know, the right wing authoritarian that overthrew Evo Morales in a coup. So that's the future. The future for that region is not looking very good, but hoping for the best, and I'm hoping for the best for the people of Brazil, and I'm just hoping for the best for people in general, because this guy is every bad thing you can imagine. So let's just hope so, for the sake of Brazil, for the sake of the Amazon rainforest that Jair Bolsonaro is destroying as we speak, and for the safety of people everywhere. So anyway, I'm gonna wrap this up because my man and I are cooking our lunch right now. And I know he made a cameo appearance. He made a little cameo appearance in the video. So I'm gonna wrap it up for now. Thank you all for listening. I have other topics to discuss in the works. Stay tuned to find out more videos on the way, and I'll be back with more soon. And I'll see you all in the next video. This is Zach the Celtics guy saying thank you for watching, and I'll be back with more soon and a whole bunch of other stuff in the works. Stay tuned. Peace. Have a nice day or night, and I will see you all in the next video. And let's just hope that they can get this guy out in the next 2 years, or the sooner the better. Peace out. See you later.